We think civil wars start with explosions. They don't, they start with silence. The silence between neighbors who no longer trust each other. The silence in a family that can no longer talk about what's happening in the world. And the deafening silence of a government that can no longer speak for all its people. A while back, we talked about how empires die from the outside, how external forces can bring down even the mightiest civilizations. But that's only half the story. Today, I'm showing you how they die from the inside. We're going to look at the anatomy of a civil war, and you'll see it's not random chaos. Civil wars follow a chillingly predictable, almost mathematical pattern. When you study the fall of Rome, the Spanish Civil War of 1936, or the breakup of Yugoslavia, you find three distinct stages that always occur before the first shot is ever fired. These are the warning signs, the red flags waving in the wind while everyone is still trying to pretend things are normal. And the most frightening part? You might recognize some of these stages happening right now, right outside your window, so let's get into it. What are the three signs that a nation is on the brink of tearing itself apart? The first stage is what I call the creation of two realities. This isn't just about political disagreement. People disagree all the time. That's normal in a healthy society. No, this is something far deeper and more dangerous. This is when two sides of a country can no longer agree on basic verifiable facts. It's when one group looks at a clear sky and calls it blue, while the other group, with equal conviction, insists it's red. They're not just interpreting the world differently. They're living in entirely different worlds. A powerful historical example comes from the lead-up to the Spanish Civil War. Historians note that for about 5 years, before the conflict erupted in 1936, a strange social phenomenon occurred. Families stopped talking to each other. Lifelong friends cut ties. It wasn't just about avoiding awkward political debates at dinner. It was a fundamental breakdown of communication. They couldn't agree on what was happening in their own country. One side saw a march for workers' rights. The other saw a communist mob. One side saw a defense of tradition and faith. The other saw a fascist takeover. They were consuming different newspapers, listening to different radio programs, and living in separate informational ecosystems. The middle ground, the shared reality that binds a nation, completely dissolved. Now think about today. How are these two realities created in the modern West, in places like the US or across Europe? It's happening through our screens. Social media algorithms, cable news channels, they've become incredibly efficient at building these echo chambers. They learn what you believe, what you fear, and what makes you angry, and then they feed you a constant, personalized diet of content that confirms it all. Your For You page becomes a For Your Worldview page. Over time, you stop understanding how anyone could possibly see things differently. You start to believe the other side isn't just wrong. They must be stupid or worse, evil. This digital segregation is the modern version of Spain's separate newspapers. It creates two tribes living in the same geographic space, but in completely separate mental and moral universes. That is stage one. Once a country is split into two opposing realities, it enters stage two. The loss of the neutral referee. In any functioning society, there are institutions that everyone, regardless of their political beliefs, is supposed to trust to be impartial. These are the referees of the game. Think about the courts, the police, the nonpartisan government agencies, and a trusted, objective media. Their job is to call balls and strikes fairly, to enforce the rules for everyone. Civil wars become almost inevitable when huge chunks of the population stop believing these referees are neutral. When citizens look at a court ruling and see not justice but a political hit job. When they see the police not as protectors of all citizens, but as the armed wing of the other side. When the media is no longer seen as a source of information, but as a propaganda machine for one tribe. When that happens, the very foundation of a peaceful society cracks. Because if you can't trust the referee, you can't trust the game. And if you can't trust the game, why would you ever play by the rules? This is the point where people start thinking about taking matters into their own hands. Look at the late Roman Republic. For centuries, Rome had a system of law and courts that, while not perfect, was respected. But in its final decades, that respect evaporated. Political gangs and mobs started attacking senators in the streets, and the courts were too weak or too biased to do anything about it. When a powerful man like Julius Caesar could defy the Senate and march his army on Rome, it was a clear signal. The rules no longer applied. The Republic was already dead. The civil wars that followed were just making it official. The moment the law is no longer seen as a shield for everyone but as a weapon for one side, the only logical defense becomes violence. If the system won't protect you, you feel you have to protect yourself. And in a society where trust in institutions has collapsed, that often means buying a gun. This leads us to the final terrifying step. Stage 3. The spark event. Once a society has completed Stage 1 and Stage 2, it's divided into two realities and has lost faith in its neutral institutions. The situation is like a room filled with gasoline vapor. The air is thick, tense, and incredibly flammable. All it takes is one single match, one spark, to cause a catastrophic explosion. This spark can be almost anything. It's often an event that, in a healthy, stable society, would be a tragedy or a crime, but would be handled by the system. But in this volatile environment, it becomes a symbol, a rallying cry that pushes people past the point of no return. History is littered with these sparks. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo is the classic example. It was the match that lit the fire of World War I, but the room was already filled with the gas of nationalism, alliances, and imperial ambitions. A more recent example is the start of the Syrian civil war. In March 2011, in the city of Dera, a group of teenagers spray-painted anti-government graffiti on a wall. They were arrested and brutally tortured by the secret police. In a normal country, this would be a horrific abuse of power, leading to investigations and protests. But in the context of Syria, a country already simmering with sectarian tension and distrust of the regime, it was the spark. The community's outrage at the treatment of their children ignited protests that spread across the country, which were met with deadly force, and the nation spiraled into a devastating civil war. The event itself was the trigger, but the war was caused by the conditions that had been building for years. And here's the most unsettling part for us today. When you look at the news cycle in many Western countries, it feels like we are seeing potential spark events happen almost every week. A controversial court verdict, a police shooting, a violent protest. Each event is immediately seized by the two opposing realities and interpreted as the ultimate proof of the other side's evil. So far, the fire hasn't fully caught. The sparks have fizzled out, but the room is still full of gas. The question is not asterisk. If asterisk, another spark will come. But when one finally ignites a fire that can't be contained. So let's bring it all together. Empires and nations don't collapse because they suddenly become weak. They fall because they become divided. They fall from the inside. They fall when they split into two realities, when they lose trust in the referees that hold society together, and when a single spark finally ignites the built-up anger and fear. Stage 1. Two realities. Stage 2. No neutral referee. Stage 3. The spark. Now I want you to think about this honestly. Look at your own country, wherever you are watching this from. Where do you think we are on this scale? Are we in Stage 1, with media and social circles creating separate worlds? Are we in Stage 2, where trust in courts, police, and the media is collapsing? Or are we already in Stage 3, just waiting for the right spark to hit the gasoline? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'm genuinely curious to see what you all think. And make sure you subscribe, because in the next video, we're going to tackle the most important question of all. Is this cycle inevitable, or is there a way to stop it? We'll discuss the only way to pull a nation back from the brink. Thanks for watching.